Alright, good evening, my name is Diego Ayala, and I'll be talking to you about World War III. But first, let's just briefly discuss World War I and II. I just want to say World War I was triggered in 1914 by an assassination. World War II was triggered in 1939 by an invasion of Poland. World War III, I believe, is going to be triggered no later than 2021. And I say that because similar events like the invasion and assassination have been predicted very recently, and I believe that those recent events will trigger World War III. And so my claim is that World War III will be declared in less than 5 years. And I'm going to prove this by telling you why. So first, Russia is currently creating global and hostile tension due to their military actions. Two, China's bullying tactics are creating similar tension in South Asia. Three, the US involvement is inevitable. And four, North Korea is provoking deadly military conflict. So let's talk about Russia is currently creating global and hostile tension. So Brian Todd of CNN reported that Vladimir Putin, who is the president of Russia, he has a defense minister who declared publicly that new military divisions on Russia's western flank are going to be placed, meaning that new military is going to be guarding Russia's western border, which one can imply that they're going to be protecting themselves from someone. Obviously, it's going to be Europe. Also, they publicly announced that they will make 5 nuclear missiles ready for combat this year, 2016. Pretty self-explanatory: nuclear bombs, ready for combat, ready to launch. Also, David Blair, chief foreign correspondent of the Telegraph newspaper in London, reported that Russian forces have rehearsed the invasion of Norway, Finland, Sweden, and Denmark. He calls them key military objectives, and the capture of these islands would allow Russia to seal off the Baltic and isolate Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. So basically this means that Russia has rehearsed military invasions of at least 8 countries, talking about taking over military key points that would help them in advancing in the invasion of those countries. So let's talk about number 2. China's bullying tactics are creating similar tensions in South Asia. So Andrew Hanling, a writer on the website Listverse, informs us that there's a conflict between China, Japan, Taiwan, and South Korea, where China is making countless threats to all these countries over territorial disputes in the air and the ocean. And also China and Russia are creating an alliance. China's People Daily, a newspaper in China, calls this alliance one of the most powerful relationships in the world. All right, so we're going to head on to number 3, which is the US will be involved because they're inclined to. Andrew Hanley also informs that the White House has publicly declared that it will back Japan against any acts of aggression by China, and they are bound to protect the Philippines based on the 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty. This basically means that any act of aggression by China towards Japan or the Philippines means that US is obligated to back them up, meaning that there is potential warfare between the US and China. Also, since China is in relation with Russia, the US can be fighting Russia as well. So number 4, North Korea being totally unpredictable and is provoking deadly military conflict. A spokesperson for North Korean media said that North Korean scientists are in high spirits to detonate hydrogen bombs of hundreds of kilotons and megatons, capable of wiping out the whole territory of the US all at once. So, North Korean media bragged about how they have successfully tested hydrogen bombs, and they told their country that we have all the power to completely eliminate the United States of America, which obviously sounds like a pretty big threat. Sam Kim of the Call news site reports that just days before conducting the nuclear test on January 6th, which was 2 weeks ago, since January 6th, by the way, they have successfully tested at least 4 hydrogen bombs out into the ocean. So that just days before conducting the nuclear test on January 6, 2016, that raised tension on the Korean peninsula, Kim has spoken publicly of his desire for warmer ties with South Korea, and there has been reports of a visit to China in the works. So one could argue that these North Korean claims that they're visiting China and they're trying to get warmer ties with South Korea. One could argue that it's a way to try to get peace, to talk about peace talks. But I would say that since China has a lot of different views and they're bullying, and so is North Korea, I feel like there's an alliance going on and an attack on anyone who opposes them. So in conclusion, because Russia is currently creating global and hostile tension due to their military actions, and China also bullying, creating the same tensions, and also that the U.S.'s involvement is inevitable, and also that North Korea is provoking military conflicts, I believe that World War III will be declared in less than 5 years. Thank you.
All right, Diego, you've got a clear statement of the proposition. There's a good preview, so we know where you're headed for the most part. I think there are a couple of things that are missing, though. You've got a timeline that's going on, and I didn't hear anything in any of the supporting points that talks about how imminent conflict is between China and any of those people in Southeast Asia that they are having territorial disputes with. The fact that China and Russia have an alliance, why that necessarily means that there is going to be some kind of coordinated plot to act in cohesion with each other, that's not really explained. The factual data that you have that talks about the Russians practicing different invasion techniques, I think that's a good starting point there. Is there some reason to think that they would do that either unprovoked, or is there some provocation that's likely to come up, especially in the next 5 years, that would produce those kinds of things? I don't know much about war games. I would assume that there are all kinds of strategies that get talked about all the time. I suspect that if we were at West Point or Annapolis, for instance, that they probably have classes on the strategies that would be used for United States intervention in Southeast Asia, South America, China, or any place in the world. And I don't know that that necessarily means that we're planning an invasion that goes on that way. It's just that we are thinking about what are the possibilities and working those things out. And I assume maybe the Russians are doing the same thing. I think you need to show that there is a little bit more aggressive intent on the Russians there, rather than just that they are looking at these things. And the 5 nuclear weapons that they're developing, that's on top of the how many nuclear weapons they already have. Why has that increased the threat proportionally? I'm not sure why that suggests that they are being different. I don't know if they're just replacing ones that they had, and even if they're adding to their total, I don't know that it would be something that people would see as being a substantial increase in their risk. So I'm not quite sure about that. What's missing on the second point is some information about China's bellicose relations with the Southeast Asian neighbors there. So they have territorial disputes. We have territorial disputes with Mexico. Nobody's thinking that we're going to go into war over which way the Rio Grande is going this week. Why is it that we would assume that Japan would suddenly be attacked by the Chinese because they have a dispute over some island with 100 people on it? I think you need to develop that a little bit more. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, that there are those disputes, but the notion that that is going to develop into a military confrontation, that sounds like it's a huge inference without enough grounds on it, I think, to support that particular point. It's well organized while you're speaking, and I think you do a pretty good job presenting it as well. All right, thank you.